Hey everyone. So in this video, we're going to go through 100 Microsoft Azure job interview questions. These questions are divided into different sections. As you can see, for cloud concept, we are going to go through 6 questions. Azure virtual machine, we are going to go through 8 questions. Azure app service and so on. So there are different sections with different number of questions. Each of these questions are formatted in this particular manner. Like I read out the question, then we populate the short answer and I will give you explanation. Towards the bottom of that flashcard, you can see a link where you can actually go and read additional information as well. On top of that, you can actually go ahead and download this particular documentation to read out further explanation, additional resources to understand that. You can consider this as a handbook to further elevate your knowledge on Azure. A quick disclaimer, even though I work at Microsoft, these questions have nothing to do with Microsoft. These are not the official Microsoft interview question. These are simply, I just want to help you understand what Azure is or help you with these job interviews. Like I showed, you can go ahead and download the study guide. I will make sure to put the link in the description. I hope you're going to find this one useful. I will see you on the next one. Take care. First, we are going to go through questions on cloud concept. Here we have 6 questions in this section. Let's look at the first question. What are the key benefits of cloud computing and how do they help businesses? Here the interviewer is trying to understand what's your current knowledge about what is cloud computing and how can it help their particular business. So you have to tweak your answer based on what industry they are, what type of business they run and things like that. First, let me help you understand what are the key points you need to highlight. Your answer should include points like scalability, elasticity, agility, high availability, disaster recovery, things like that. So how can you craft the message? So first and foremost, tell that, hey, cloud computing offers several benefits. And if you are focusing on scalability, cloud computing enables businesses to adapt or adjust cloud computing resources quickly according to the demand of that particular business. Other points you can mention about scalability is it allows handling of increased workloads during peak hours. Or you can tell cloud computing offers scaling up and scaling down of these services during off-peak hours time to save cost. So these are some of the pointers you can use to address scalability benefit. Second, how do you address elasticity? You can mention things like cloud systems automatically adjust resources to match workload changes. That is directly in relation to the elasticity benefit of cloud computing. Second is cloud computing allows you to provision and deprovision resources according to real-time needs. Or you can mention things like cloud computing helps you optimize performance and cost efficiency. One of the example you can probably use here is about an e-commerce website. Typically, it can handle varying traffic loads seamlessly without any sort of manual intervention because it is hosted in the cloud. The next point is agility. So how do you help the interviewer understand how you know about agility? You can talk about agility by telling that businesses can quickly develop, test, and launch application if you host your services in the cloud. And because the cloud services are readily available, this reduces the time to go to market significantly if you have any particular product or offering you want to launch immediately. Another point what you can use is this enables faster innovation and prompt response to market changes. Or you can ask like, hey, do you have in-house development team? If you have in-house development team, they can actually streamline their workflows and improve productivity using the cloud platforms like Azure DevOps, things like that. The next point you might want to highlight is the high availability benefit of cloud computing. Here you're going to highlight the fact like cloud services are continuously operational with minimal downtime. So thus providing high availability all the time. And this is achieved through redundant systems and failover mechanism each cloud provider have in their backend. So when we go through advanced topics in the coming question, we will dive deep into the SLA aspect of high availability, what are the redundant services they use in the backend and things like that. The next advantage of high availability you can provide is like cloud provides uninterrupted service even in the event of hardware failures or other disruptions because of that redundant service I talked about. If you are a beginner, if you feel like some of these terms are alien to you or very difficult to comprehend, please don't worry. Upcoming questions will help you clarify your doubts you may have in this regards. The next point you could highlight is businesses can rely on consistent performance and avoid any sort of costly outages because you don't have to worry about managing this infrastructure yourself. You're leaving that headache to the cloud provider to take care of that. So they will give me a high available service all the time. And the last point you want to touch upon is the advantages of cloud computing disaster recovery. You can highlight this point by telling cloud computing offers robust backup and recovery option to protect against any sort of data loss. So in case of any data loss happen, you can use inbuilt services built in or provided by these cloud services to recover these data. Or another point you can highlight is cloud computing enables quick restoration of systems and data in case of disasters such as cyber attacks, natural calamities, or human errors. So if they ask how, you can probably tell that there are multiple regions available. So you can quickly fail over from one region to another region to recover your services, to quickly bring back your services, to make sure your service is up and running. Another point is cloud computing ensures business continuity and safeguards critical information. So make sure you use all of that pointers I talked about. If you want to understand more, you can always click on this reference link. This takes you to a page where you can actually read about it. Like all interview question, I have this documentation available as well. So if you don't want to listen to me while I'm talking about these explanations are clearly written and there are reference link available for each question. So you can download both the presentation pack and this particular document from my blog. Let us look into question number 2. In this question, the interviewer is trying to understand, do you know about the main cloud service models like IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS? Here they kind of given you the answer itself, IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. Sometimes they ask what are the main types of cloud service model available? Then you need to explain what are these. So let me populate the answer first, then we will go through this one by one. First, IaaS is infrastructure as a service. So how do you explain infrastructure as a service? You can explain infrastructure as a service as a cloud service which provides virtualized computing resources over the internet, such as virtual machine and storage. Within IaaS, users manage operating system and application while the provider manages the infrastructure. So what are the benefits of infrastructure as a service? This offers flexible resources scaling on demand. Another advantage is IaaS reduces any sort of physical hardware and maintenance cost, and this enables disaster recovery and business continuity. So examples of this infrastructure as a service are the services offered by Microsoft Azure or Amazon Web Services or Google Services, things like that. Next, let's help you understand how you can talk about platform as a service. So platform as a service offers a platform allowing customers to develop, run, and manage applications without dealing with the underlying infrastructure. So in the infrastructure as a service, we talked about you getting virtual machines and storage accounts, things like that to host these services. Then you have to build your applications on top of it. In the infrastructure as a service, you have to manage both the underlying infrastructure like the operating system and the storage and the network and your application. But if you go to the platform as a service, you only need to take care of the applications. So what are the benefits of PaaS? PaaS simplifies the application deployment and development. This provides built-in software components to speed up the development because you don't have to worry about the underlying stuff. Then PaaS manages the underlying infrastructure for you. So if it is Azure, Microsoft manages the underlying infrastructure for the customer. That includes the server, storage, and the networking so that you focuses on your collaboration among your developer teams or the tools what you use. So one of the examples I can think of is Azure App Services or Google App Engine. The third one is software as a service. So how do you explain this? So think of software as a service is like your Netflix or your Salesforce, your Microsoft 365, Exchange Online, things like that. So this is how you can explain. Software as a service delivers software applications over the internet on a subscription basis model, and the provider manages everything, and users access this software via web browsers, or they can access via an application as well, but everything streams from the internet. So what are some of the benefits of software as a service? This eliminates the need for application installation and maintenance. So if you look at it, the first one, you will get the virtual machine and the storage and the network you have to configure. Then you have to install your application. In the second one, Microsoft takes care of the server and the storage. You manages the application layer. In the third one, you don't even have to worry about the infrastructure. You don't have to worry about the application. You only take care of um, the usage and the data part of it. Rest everything is taken by the provider. So this provides access to the software from any device with an internet connection. And software as a service ensures automatic updates and patch management, because the cloud provider will take care of all the backend administration and the management of it. And this offers scalability to accommodate growing user base, because it's technically you purchasing additional licenses, or sometimes it is known as subscriptions, to based on your need. So you don't have to worry about scaling the application per se. Some of the examples what I mentioned is like Spotify, Netflix, Salesforce services, or Microsoft Office 365 services. If you want to know more about it, please feel free to click on this particular link. It takes you through further reading to understand it better. Let's look at question number 3. Here, the interviewer is trying to understand, do you know what are the three different deployment models of cloud? Here again, I kind of gave you the answer. So sometimes they can ask, what are these deployment model? So the primary three deployment models are public, private, and hybrid. So let's populate the answer first. So how do you help them understand about these deployment model? So first, what is this public cloud? So public clouds are services delivered over the public internet and shared across organization. Some of the examples include Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Services, or Google Services, or it is known as Google Cloud Platform or GCP. What are the advantages of public cloud? Some of the advantages are cost efficient due to shared resources, high scalability and flexibility. This is what we learned in the first question. No need for any sort of on-premises resources, accessibility from anywhere with an internet connection. Some of the disadvantages of public cloud include less control over the security and compliance, because you are putting security and compliance things on top of whatever they provide. You don't have the underlying control on the hardware and the place where it is hosted, things like that. So that is a slightly disadvantage there. Potential latency issues depending on the internet connection. So if you are in a remote location where there is no close region available for you, you potentially could face latency issues if your internet connection is bad as well. So that is a slight disadvantage. Another disadvantage you can think of is, because it's a shared resources model, this may lead to any sort of performance variations as well, depending on what type of deployment option you choose, things like that. The next is private cloud. So what is a private cloud? Private clouds are exclusive cloud environment dedicated to a single organization. So you can think of it as something you hosted on premises within your organization, or you could probably take a help from a third party provider who exclusively manages all the things for you. So what are these advantages for this private cloud? So advantages include greater control over security and compliance. This provides you a lot of customization to meet any sort of specific organizational need, because you manages everything, it's under your control. And this offers you enhanced performance due to the dedicated resources. All the resources what you put over there are exclusively for you, so you can decide how you want to use it without worrying about the cost implication, things like that, because you paid for that resources upfront. That doesn't mean it doesn't come with some disadvantages. So what are the disadvantages of this private cloud? Some of the disadvantages are higher cost compared to the public cloud, because you have to pay for these services upfront to purchase it. And even if you use it or not, you already invested that much money. So there is a cost involved. And typically that is higher cost because you're not buying in volume. Then this requires management and maintenance, because you are hosting it. You have to worry about where you are hosting it, paying for the place, paying for the electricity, paying for the internet, paying for the air condition, all sort of things. And then you need manpower to manage and maintain and things like that. Other disadvantage is limited scalability compared to public cloud. What if your business is going through a huge expansion and you can't get hold of the hardware to actually support the expansion? If you're in public cloud, you don't have to worry about the scalability, because the provider will provide you unlimited options where you can pick and choose to scale your services. That's not your worry on buying these hardware and things like that. The next one is hybrid cloud. How do you explain hybrid cloud? So you can probably combine the two things what you learned so far, public cloud and private cloud, and you can stitch an answer together. So you can tell that this combines the benefits of both public and private clouds, allowing data and application to be shared between them. So you can decide what application you want to host in the public, some of the resources you want to keep in the on premises or closest to where you are, which is controlled by you. So some of the advantages are flexibility to choose where you run these workloads depending on sovereignty issues, depending on compliance, depending on your preference, depending on confidentiality level, things like that. It could be anything. So you can decide where you want to host it. Second advantage is optimization of existing infrastructure, security, and compliance. So you optimize your existing infrastructure and then you look at the cloud for further expansion. Another benefit is scalability aspect of public cloud with the control of private cloud. Some of the disadvantages include complexity in management and integration depending upon what services you use. Sometimes you need high skill to make sure that everything is properly managed and properly integrated, and it's a constant task. Another disadvantage could be potential for inconsistent security policies, because you might have a different policy architecture and the services on-prem versus some of the services running in the cloud. Another one could be a higher cost due to managing both environments. So you probably need to have two different skill set if your team is not equipped to handle both of these services at the same time. So think of all of that when you answer this question. Try to go and read a bit more about it if you're quite new to this particular area. Otherwise, this explanation is more than sufficient for you to clear this particular question. Let's look at question number 4. This is a scenario based question. So here the interviewer is asking, hey, your company wants to move their on-premises application to cloud, but is concerned about security and compliance. They want to definitely move to the cloud, but they want to make sure that security and compliance is taken care. Which deployment model would you recommend and why? Based on what you have learned in the previous question, that holds the answer for this question. So they definitely want to move into the cloud. They have concerns about security and compliance. How do you help them ease their transition to the cloud rather than like giving them a band-aid approach? So let me populate the answer. The correct answer is hybrid cloud. So typically talk about all the things what I mentioned in the last question. So if you want a refresher, I can give you a refresher by giving you an explanation on explain hybrid cloud as like something which offers extra security and compliance, because this allows sensitive data and critical application to be maintained on a private cloud that is there on premises, which ensures compliance with industry like regulations and internal security policies. This enables better control and monitoring of better data access and storage within your organization. These are some of the advantages. And then it provides some cost efficiency as well, because this optimizes resource utilization by leveraging the public cloud for less sensitive operation, and you can maintain your highly confidential stuff on premises. So some of the stuff you can offload to the cloud, some of the confidential stuff you can retain in your on premises. Another way they can reduce the cost is by no needing to invest in and maintaining extensive on-premises infrastructure. Though they don't need to keep on expanding their on-premises. Whenever there is an expansion, if it is less sensitive, they can move that to the cloud. So maintain on-premises infrastructure only for the confidential stuff. And highlight the fact about the scalability and flexibility this hybrid cloud offers by telling, hey, this provides ability to scale resources up and down based on your demand. You don't have to necessarily keep all the services running in the cloud all the time. If you don't want, you can scale down as well, so you don't pay for that extra services which is running in the cloud. And this particular model provides flexibility and control over sensitive data while optimizing resources. So this is a fairly straightforward question and straightforward answer. If you need further reading, please go and check on this particular reference link for further reading. Let us look at question number 5. In this question, the interviewer is trying to understand, do you know about the shared responsibility model? This is quite important concept within the cloud computing. So how do you explain this shared servicing model or shared responsibility model? So let me populate the answer. First, to give you a quick answer, see if you can understand anything from this. The shared responsibility model outlines the division of security and compliance responsibility between the cloud provider and the customer. So customer takes some responsibility, the cloud provider takes some responsibility. That is shared service model. So on a high level, what are the responsibility owned by the cloud provider? Typically, the cloud provider will take care of the responsibility of the infrastructure security. So they ensure the safety and integrity of the hardware, software, networking, and the facilities. You don't have to worry about it. And the physical security, which protect the data center, that is also taken care by the cloud provider. Additionally, they take care of the network security by implementing the firewall, encryption, and things like that to safeguard the network. And these cloud providers go and proactively take these regulatory compliance requirement by the industry standards that provide a secure environment. So these are all the things taken care by the cloud provider. The next thing we need to understand is what are the customer responsibility. So usually the customer is the one who need to take care of the data security. Data means your own data. So you need to take care of the confidentiality, integrity, availability of the data stored in the cloud. So you need to make sure that you have the right mechanism in place or the services or the tools which you can use to protect the data. Then the application security. Even though the cloud provider provide you the server and everything to host the application, you need to ensure that all the application and software running in the cloud environment are secure. So how do you do that? You make sure you put the right guardrails, you patch your application on time, you only expose the application to the right ports and things like that. Another responsibility of the customer is identity management. You are the one who need to manage the user access and the permission to prevent any sort of unauthorized access. So how do you do that? Only give the rightful rights to a user. Don't make a lot of administrators in your organization. Make sure you provide the protocols to give the right user the right access to do the right task and things like that. It's a security conversation. We can dive deep into that at a later point, but make sure you take care of the identity. So customer responsibility is to look after the identity. And then the responsibility for the customer is the configuration management. So that is, you need to make sure you properly configure and manages the cloud resources. The cloud provider will not configure anything for you. They just provide you the platform and the customer takes care of the configuration part of it. And the last one is the compliance part of it. So as a customer, you need to ensure that the cloud services comply with your internal policies and external regulations. If it doesn't, you need to probably choose a different cloud provider or you need to choose a different cloud deployment model like we talked about in the previous question, like a hybrid model which offers you greater flexibility in terms of compliance management and things like that. So these sort of responsibility varies slightly on what type of cloud service model you choose as well. So if you choose IaaS, there will be a slightly different variation of this shared responsibility. If you choose PaaS, there is a slight different variation. If it is SaaS, there is a slightly different variation. So I have explained this in detail on another interview video I've done for the Microsoft 365, where I have explained in detail. Because here in Azure, I understand that even if you're a beginner, you understand this concept. Where in the Microsoft 365 world, anybody who's trying to learn this may be like quite a newbie. So I've explained this in detail. So if you want to watch that, you can go to that video and watch that explanation. Let us look into question number 6. Here, the interviewer is trying to understand, do you know the not a characteristics of cloud computing? Typically, I don't think anybody asks a question like this. This is not an examination. Typically, these questions will come on an examination style, but I just want to give you some variety. That's why I asked you this question. But again, if you go through a question like this, you are trying to eliminate here. While eliminating, you will learn good 3 answers as well. That is the objective of this. So, what is not a characteristic of cloud computing? Is it on demand self service? That is a benefit, or that is a characteristic of cloud computing, because users can automatically provision cloud computing resources as needed without any sort of human intervention from the service provider. And this feature include the ability to manage server time, network storage, and application. So it's an on-demand self-service. That is a characteristic of cloud service. Next, is it broad network access? Yes. Resources are available over a network and access through standard mechanism to promote use of heterogeneous thin or thick client platforms like mobile phones or tablets or phone or workstation, whichever devices you use. As long as you have an internet connectivity, you can access any services offered by the cloud. So that is a characteristic. Next is it offers that services are available over the internet, enhancing accessibility and user reach. So, what is the next option? Is it a rapid elasticity? Is it a characteristic of cloud computing? Yes, because you can expand these services by provisioning whatever you need and scale rapidly outward, or you can shrink by going inward if there is no demand for your services. And for customers, this means that they can quickly increase capacity to accommodate growth or scale down when the resources are no longer needed. What about the fixed performance? No. So that is the wrong answer. So even though it is a correct answer for this question, fixed performance is not a characteristic of cloud computing, because cloud resources are designed to be flexible and scalable. Fixed performance implies that the resources cannot adapt to varying loads, which is contrary to the fundamental principles of cloud computing. So that is the wrong answer for this question. So we completed the first section of this interview. So that was the basics. Now going forward, we are going to increase the complexity bit by bit. So if you are a beginner, intermediate, or experienced level, I will give you enough reference link and good explanation so that you can understand it. But for whatever reason, if you can't understand the way I talk or because of my accent, please download the pack to read that answer clearly so that you can understand more. Next section, we are going to go through 8 questions on Azure Virtual Machines or VMs. First question is, what is Azure Virtual Machine and when would you use it? So it's a twofold question. One, it is trying to understand, do you know anything about Azure Virtual Machine? And second, it is going to try to understand, do you know what are the use cases for using it? So let's populate the answer. First, help them understand what is Azure Virtual Machine. You can tell this by telling Azure Virtual Machine or VM is an on-demand scalable computing resource in the Microsoft Azure, and this allows customers to run their application, host services, or perform computing tasks without managing the physical hardware. So that is the explanation of Azure Virtual Machine. Now, what are the use cases? So we talked about some of the use cases in the previous question. So let me help you understand some of the use cases. One, it allows customers running their application that require custom configuration. So if you want to install a particular software with custom configuration, you don't want to use a platform as a service, you would choose a virtual machine where you have full control on how to install it, how to configure it. It's up to you. And you can choose a specific operating system or runtime when you install this application. You can choose what server operating system, what client operating system, what runtime you want to run, things like that. Second use case is this allows you to host databases, websites, and business application. So you can go ahead and install your SQL or NoSQL or other database servers, whatever you choose. Or if you want to run web servers such as Apache or IaaS, you can go ahead and pick that too. Or if you want to run your own enterprise solutions like ERP or CRM systems, this allows you to run that as well. Another use case you can probably highlight here is this allows you to test and develop application in different environment. So you can have isolated environment for development and testing. This will help you simulate the production environment, ensuring compatibility across various operating system and software versions. Another thing which you could probably highlight is, imagine if your company is purely moving towards the platform as a service, which is the less maintenance option. But if you happen to have some legacy application that require custom operating system, while you are modernizing that application, you can tell that, hey, we are going to use this legacy application in the virtual machine on a specific operating system while we are going through the migration strategy and things like that. So that's how you can together a story to explain with these use cases. Let's look at the next question. The next question, the interviewer trying to understand, how do you create this Azure virtual machine? Typically, they will not ask you to create unless this is a lab include. So some interviews will have lab mostly for development roles. But if you are going for a infrastructure role also, sometimes these companies have these lab environment where they ask you to do certain tasks. So I'm going to quickly take you through the Azure portal to show you some of the mechanisms or ways you can create this Azure virtual machine. All right, so I'm giving you some of the steps on what you can perform. I'm sure you know much better than me, but if you are a beginner, you want to know how to create an Azure virtual machine, there are multiple ways you can do that. You can use a template, you can use a script, you can use PowerShell. This is a graphical user interface, very simple to understand. So this is the Azure portal. You can go to portal.azure.com to log into the Azure portal. Once you log in with the right username and password, then you can access the services. On the left hand side, you can open this flyout and you can see many of the popular services, including Azure Virtual Machine. So you can click this, or you can go in here, the search box, and you can type in any Azure services, including Virtual Machine. So that will give you these services option which you can pick from as well. So when you open the virtual machine tab, if you currently have any virtual machine, this is where you can see it. If you don't, you have an option to create virtual machine. Ignore the other option, just focus on the Azure virtual machine. So click on Azure virtual machine, and that gives you this graphical user interface to pick and choose and provide certain information to set up your first Azure virtual. First, make sure you select the right subscription. Then the resource group, where do you want to host it? So resource group is nothing but a container where you are collecting all of these services or putting together these services together. So you can create a new one or you can select an existing one. So for interest of this demo, I'm selecting an existing one and give a name for your virtual machine. So I'm going to call it as interview 123 Azure. That's going to be the name. Where do you want to host it? This is what I talked about, different places where you can host it. Microsoft have plenty of these regions which allows you to pick and choose where you want to host it. These choices would be depending upon, do you want to go closer to the user where they are residing, or is that where your end users are? Do you want to provide these services in a less latency way, things like that. So that determines where you host it. So pick a region which is closest to you or most appropriate for you. And then these are the availability zone. We will cover this in detail, but this is basically what takes care of the redundancy aspect of it. If something happens to your data, depending on the availability options you choose, you can recover these data quickly and faster, and your data is in a high resilience manner, hosted in a high resilience manner. So there are many options. I don't want to digress and go into that detail. So pick up one and then the zone based on what you picked. Then Microsoft offers plenty of security type. Do you want to go with a standard one or a trusted launch virtual machine, which gives you additional protection, things like that? What operating system you want to choose? You can see that there are plenty of operating system choices like Linux offerings, various distribution within Linux, Microsoft offering, and you can bring in your own custom image as well. So I'm going to pick a Windows server. Within that, you have different architecture available based on the operating system you choose. You get to choose that. These are some of the additional spot discounts based on the capacity or the price for capacity, things like that. We are not going to talk about that. The most important part is the size of the virtual machine. The size is nothing but this compute. We will learn more into this particular sizes and various sizes in upcoming question. These sizes are nothing but a combination of virtual CPU and the RAM and the disk you can get for different purpose built devices. So if I shrink this, and if you look at it, D series, this is designed to protect any sort of confidentiality, integrity of the code, a general purpose workload. DV6 is the sixth generation D family for general purpose one. There is high memory need compute, F series for compute intensive workload and things like that. So there are quite a different number of series you can get. So basically which one you pick is based on why you are trying to host this particular service. So when you choose, it has different cost associated with it. On the right hand side, you can see that estimated cost for this particular server running 24/7, including the image, it's gonna cost me like this much dollars. And additionally, I'm gonna pay for disk networking management, things like that, as and when I populate these services. Next, who is gonna provide a password for the administrator? Then you can choose the inbound role. Do you want to connect it using any port? If not, none. So that secures it. So then you have assume that you have other mechanism to connect it. Otherwise, for configuration, you can select what are the ports you need to open to connect to that services. You need to be aware of the security implications of whatever you choose here and the licenses. So if you are a hybrid user benefit user, that means you already have the software assurances which you use for your on premises. You can bring in that licensing here to reduce the cost of these services. So if I select this, that immediately brings the cost down of the server. So you can see that previously we were supposed to pay around like 130 or something like that. Now we are looking at paying 89. So if I uncheck this, the cost of this goes back to 156. You can immediately click on review and create, but I just want to show you additional configuration like disk. Herein you will get an option to choose what type of disk you want for your virtual machine. Do you want a standard disk or SSD, premium storage? Even within the premium, there are multiple options available right now. Pick a choice. Go to networking tab. You can choose an existing network where you can host this particular virtual machine so that it can interact with the services which is part of that network or wherever it is having access to connect and things like that. Or else you can create a brand new network. Network security group, we will talk about this in detail when we go through the networking scenario. This allows you to define the security controls, the flows, things which is coming in and out of these services, things like that. Next is the management aspect of it. Do you want to connect into Microsoft Defender for Cloud, which provides advanced threat protection, things like that? Do you want to enable system assigned managed identity, or do you want to log in with your Entra ID? There are a lot of options here. Some cost benefit options like do you want to provide automatic shutdown based on that the server will shut down on a particular time. Do you want to enable backup so something goes wrong with the device, you can automatically retrieve it based on the previous restore time? So you can see that the option is unlimited and it's keep on evolving. There is monitoring tab where you can actually look into the boot diagnostics log information to find out and troubleshoot any health related issues for this particular server. Advanced tab will provide you connection into extensions, custom instructions to install when boot into the device, things like that. I know that I talked a lot, so I don't want to spend a lot of time. Once you provide all these right information, all you have to do is click on review and create. Based on the information what you provided, it goes through a verification validation. If all the information is correct, after the final validation, if you get the green tick box, you can click on create. That virtual machine is going to be ready for you in like a minute or so. That how easy and simple it is to go to Azure portal and create it. If you don't want to go through all of this, you can create an ARM template, or like you say another mechanism like Terraform or whatever, or a PowerShell to create it as well. So there are various ways you can create it. So these are the high level steps which I mentioned in this pack. So if you don't want to go through this in explanation, you can just basically want to read about it. These are the steps you can use to actually go ahead and create these servers. In this particular question, interviewer is trying to understand, do you know the main difference between Azure virtual machine and how to choose the right one? So I kind of showed different virtual machine sizes. Let us go through these on a super high level. So these are some of the most common virtual machine sizes you can find within Azure. There are some different ones as well, but these are the most common one. Let me help you understand what are these. First is the general purpose. This comes as either a D series or a B series. So these are balanced CPU to memory ratio. This is good for most applications. D series are ideal for web servers, medium traffic application databases, and the B series are good for cost effective workloads that are typically low in moderate CPU usage but occasionally require high performance. That's where you can look into the B series. The next offering is the compute optimized one. It is known as F series. As the name suggests, the F series offer you high CPU performance for compute heavy tasks. So this is best for any sort of batch processing, web servers. If you're doing any sort of analytics and gaming, F series is the ideal choice. The third option is the memory optimized one. This is either come as E series or M series. As the name suggests, this offers you high memory for large databases and in-memory analytics. E series is ideal for relational databases, memory caching, and in-memory analytics. And M series is suitable for large-scale databases and ERP applications. The next is storage optimized L series. As the name suggests, this series is geared towards providing you high disk throughput for large data processing. This is designed for databases, big data, and data warehousing. And the last most common series of VMs available in Azure is the GPU enabled NC or NV series. So this is designed for any sort of AI, gaming, and graphic intensive workloads. NC means this is optimized for AI, machine learning, and high performance computing, or HPC. NV series is suitable for virtualization, rendering, and gaming workloads. So choosing the right virtual machine, you need to consider how much CPU you need, how much RAM you need, how much disk performance, and most importantly, you need to consider the pricing as well. So if you want to know more about it, please click on this reference link, which will take you through the page where it talks about the different types of Azure VM series in detail. Let us look into question number 10. This is a scenario based question. So the question is, your company want to run a high traffic e-commerce website with unpredictable traffic spikes. What VM feature should you use to ensure scalability and availability? So a couple of key points here. You want to run your high traffic, so your e-commerce website is regularly used for many people from many places, that is high traffic with some unpredictable traffic spikes, and you need to pick and choose what VM feature you can use within Azure to ensure the scalability aspect and availability of your services. So this is where you can help the interviewer understand. You can tell like, hey, to handle high traffic and ensure high availability, you can use features like auto scaling, load balancer, availability set, and Azure scale set. So on a super high level, we will go through in detail about this later. On a high level, what is auto scaling? Auto scaling allows you to automatically adjust the VM instances based on demand. So while configuring your services, you can choose like how many number of VMs you need to be in the pack. So depending on the load, the instances of the VM will automatically spin up to meet the demand. And when the demand goes down, you can have conditions in place where it can shrink down or reduce the number of VMs running, thus saving the cost as well. So that is auto scaling. The next option you can provide is load balancer. If you place a load balancer that intelligently distribute this traffic across multiple virtual machines to avoid any sort of overload. So load balancers come in many shape and form with different features, things like that. We need to understand that in the networking section, but having a load balancer is ideal and crucial to distribute this traffic evenly so that it is not burning a single server. When it does, it will lead you to bad performance or poor performance for the user. Third option is availability sets. So availability sets ensures any sort of redundancy by spreading these VMs across multiple fault and update domains. If you remember in the first few questions, I talked about cloud offers these reliability and redundancy services. So if something goes wrong in the cloud, like if any electrical failure or internet outages, because you have this availability set, this will automatically reroute your services to a different availability zone based on the fault. It could be based on a patching issue, it could be based on electrical failure, it could be based on a network failure. But if you have your services spread across different availability set, you don't have to worry about these failures because it will automatically take care of the redundancy aspect of your services. And the last point is Azure Scale Set. This automatically manages and scales a group of VMs as traffic fluctuates. This goes hand in hand with the auto scaling aspect of it. So you will configure the auto scaling in the Azure Scale Set. So based on the demand, it will group together some of the VM, and based on the high traffic, it will increase the number of VMs which offer the services. And if the demand goes down, it shrinks down the number of VMs it provides services. So make sure you look into this aspect, look into this Azure virtual machine scale set. This is directly answering the question here. You can probably tell, hey, you can use Azure virtual machine scale set that include all of these below set components and things like that.